It is very hard to work in a highly regulated industry. There's no question about that because in addition to the requirements that make a lot of sense, there are also ones that, at least as they apply in your particular circumstances, may not make as much sense. And that's where I think the company really has an obligation to spend the time with employees to explain the overall purpose of the regulations, why it's important for the regulations to be in place, and why it's really important for the reputation of the company that the employees consistently comply with those regulations. Because after all, the products made in the pharmaceutical industry are taken by people, and life or death hangs in the balance taking those medicines. So it's essential that you meet the highest manufacturing standards. It's essential that you meet the highest standards for clinical development and study. And it's essential that you meet the ethical requirements and the legal requirements for how you promote your products to doctors so that they understand fully the risks and the benefits for patients. And I think when you focus on the patient, it makes it a lot easier to understand why you are surrounded by a web of regulatory requirements. I think with any publicly traded company, it operates with tremendous pressures coming from a lot of different directions. And certainly the pressure from Wall Street to provide regular earnings, to meet financial targets is very real. There's no question about it. But I think another part of that is educating your shareholders and educating financial experts about the industry that you operate in and the way that drug development happens, so that, in other words, they need to understand that it takes a long time, it takes a lot of money, and so there is a huge educational aspect for the financial audiences who represent shareholders and for shareholders themselves about the business. But shareholders ultimately need to take a lot of pride in owning stock of a company that is bringing that kind of benefit to patients, not just in the United States, but around the world. The pharmaceutical industry has helped transform medicine starting in the 20th century. And I think shareholders in many cases really value that as the ultimate goal of the pharmaceutical industry, and that's why they hold the stock. Given the fact that U.S.-based companies are regulated under the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, it's essential that the company pay attention to what those contractors are doing as if Lilly were undertaking the work itself. And we have to make certain at a company like Lilly that in all instances we are meeting the requirements of the law. The laws in the countries in which we operate, the laws of the United States. And so that often requires great attention to detail when you're faced with a situation where you have a product that's languishing on a dock because somebody's looking for a bribe. But we made it very clear to people that they couldn't pay the bribe. There was more insulin that we could bring in if we had to, but we couldn't be in the business of paying bribes to government officials.